So, guys, welcome to this live stream with myself, Jason, and my co-host over here, Ryan. And tonight we are talking about the expectation of what's going to happen with Stellantis / Jeep, Dodge, and Ram. There's been news going around talking a lot about this over the last few days or a week or so. And of course, the big thing is Dodge, Ram, and Jeep, are they going away? Is Stellantis going to axe them? Are they on the chopping block, so to speak? And I really wanted to show you guys a short that I did release this morning that seems to be doing very well and generating an awful lot of conversation, talking about just this very subject. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to share with you guys a video from CNBC. We're going to watch it together. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about some of the points that they're making. It's only a 16-minute video. We may not need to watch the whole thing, but there's a few key points that I want to take away from that as part of what we're doing here tonight, in hopes that we can kind of break things down, talk a little bit about what's going on. Sorry if I'm distracted. I'm trying to put in a login code here for my Instagram on my computer and talk to you guys at once. So when you hear the name Dodge, Ryan, what's the first thing that kind of comes to mind when you hear the name Dodge?
For my own personal experience, I've never actually owned a Dodge, but everybody I know who's ever owned one, it's been a rusty pile of garbage. But
well, I mean, you got to kind of take that out of the equation because of where we live.
Because where I live, exactly. So it's sure. I see the world in rust-colored glasses. I always like the third wheel, if that makes sense. Like, if Ford and GM are dating, they're the little brother that kind of tags along to the movie, right? I always think they're like they're the afterthought for most people when it comes to vehicles.
Seems to be that way, but they certainly made a lot of waves through the years with certain vehicles, certain topics of conversation. We go back to the late 60s when they were trying to be competitive in NASCAR. What were the two vehicles that kind of put them on the map? And that was the Superbird and the Daytona. Right. They ran races. They won almost every race that season with those two cars, and NASCAR banned them. Right. You jump into the names like Hemi. Hemi just used to be an engine. Now it's a trademark. You come into the late 70s with the the fuel crisis and the oil embargoes and EPA and pollution and economy cars and who made Chrysler what it was and pulled them out of the drink in the 80s, Ryan. I think it was
Lee Iacocca.
Lee Iacocca.
And
the K car. And out of that K car spawned several different vehicles.
Yep.
Leading into the early 80s and lifted Dodge back kind of into the game, so to speak. Dodge has always been, kind of on that back burner. And in a lot of cases, Cummins came along with their trucks to provide, in my opinion, probably the most iconic diesel truck package ever.
That's fair.
In personal trucks.
Yeah.
And then we get into 2008, 2009, where GM and Dodge are, on the verge of bankruptcy. And I think even parts of divisions of Dodge did go for bankruptcy, and they had to start looking at things. And then we bring ourselves up to present day, where Dodge changed hands a couple of times in the last 20 years. They've had 3 different ownerships, Ryan.
Yeah, I believe it's 3. Yep.
It started off where Daimler kind of bought into them back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, and Mercedes was in there too, and
yeah. I mean, you buy a Mercedes and it had the same key $60,000 Mercedes had the same key as a Dodge minivan. So then you go and you look at, I forget what year it was. Maybe it was 2016 when Fiat kind of bought into. Maybe it was earlier than that. Maybe it was 2014 where Fiat bought into.
I think it was 2012.
And you started seeing a lot of Fiat cars back in North America. The Fiat 500.
2014.
Yeah, the Fiat 500, the Fiat 500L. And then they had down in the States, I think they got a Fiat 500X, which was a small little SUV.
Yeah.
Recently being acquired by the Stellantis group.
Conglomerate.
Huge. They became the fourth largest car manufacturer or automotive group in the world, which we thought was to be a good thing, but all that did was bring a lot of Fiat garbage to North America.
You're not wrong.
What's that?
I said you're not wrong.
No. And then today or recently we start hearing and seeing talks about Stellantis and their underperforming brands like Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 2023 was a big year for these guys in North America. And we're going to talk mostly about North America because that's where we are. 23 was a huge year. They were setting records. They were selling lots of vehicles. The Ram pickups were pacing GM with their sales. They were showing record profits in some areas, and then move to fast forward to second quarter 2024. Profits, sales are down 50%, and that hurts in the car industry. So Stellantis, as the big guy at the table, looks at the big picture and they say, well, how are we going to fix this problem? Today in this live stream, we're going to talk a little bit about what we feel those problems are. And then we're going to kind of break down this video. So let me see if I can play this video with some sound for you guys and see what you think. And we'll take a look at some of the comments on this as well. Market cutting off an entire generation of potential buyers, with all other domestic brands jumping on board with the fully electric. Were you hearing that, Ryan?
I'm only hearing it now. Yeah, it cut in.
So Dodge, Jeep, and Ram are on the chopping block. Is it because they make poor quality cars, trucks, vans, SUVs, or is it the fact that they haven't jumped fully on board the EV platform yet? Jeep has priced themselves completely out of the market, cutting off an entire generation of potential buyers. With all other domestic brands jumping on board with the fully electric trucks, cars, and SUVs, Dodge has yet to follow suit. Therefore, people just ain't a-buying. So regardless of the reason, after over 120 years, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram could be getting the axe from Stellantis. So are people getting cold feet because of the news? Have they simply priced themselves out of the market? Or is it the fact that they haven't switched to a broader EV platform yet? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Is Dodge, Ram, and Jeep a thing of the past? So that's the Instagram short or reel and YouTube short that I posted today. Asking questions is really what I wanted. I wanted engagement from my audience, and I got it.
You did.
All platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. People just kind of started telling us exactly how they felt. And we're going to go over some of those. Before we do that, we want to welcome a few people into the chat who are watching. It says there's 14 people there. We hope to get more. And if you haven't yet, hit that like button, please. Hit the like button on this live stream. It may push that out so a few people can come in here and join in on the conversation. So The Canadian Space Advocate, local fella here in town, David, thanks for jumping in. Jason Rock from Montreal has jumped in here. Chuck Schultz, thanks, Chuck. Chuck is in my comment section quite regularly. Forrest Stewart, new name. I don't think I've seen that name. Maybe I have. King Eric, the greatest of all, is also in there. And if you are watching and you don't want to talk, that's fine. You don't have to. But it'd be nice to say hi in the chat and let us know that you're here. And once again, don't forget to hit that like button.
I think King Eric has a little jab at you there in the chat.
Well, it wouldn't be right if he didn't.
He says Stellantis will only recover as soon as they bring back the Cordoba.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that chat, I'm going to go to Instagram because that seemed to be where most of the talk was. So we want to talk, repeat some of these people's comments, and you guys can kind of deliver from there to see what people are saying. RT_Ray66 states, it's not the brand's fault, it's management's fault for being greedy. What say you, Ryan?
I mean, I don't run a multi-billion-dollar car company, so I can't tell you if these prices are paper-thin margins. But one would have to believe that they wouldn't be doing it if it was paper-thin margins. So I would say yes, vehicles are definitely priced too damn high. Especially if you look at the prices across the globe, it looks as like North America is paying way more than we should be for vehicles.
Yeah, and where do you think we attribute those price increases from?
I think it's more of a I can get away with it, so I'm going to do it mentality. I think it's, we always make jokes here where I am that it's all those people coming back from the big jobs up on the mainland are willing to pay $100,000 for a truck, so they just do it. They don't care. All right, and then of course that prices us normal people out of a good vehicle for an affordable price. But I think there is some greed there. I think they're looking at how much money they can make, and I don't know if it's a last ditch effort to make internal combustion engines profitable, but I mean, they got to find the EV money somewhere, I suppose.
So, which kind of leads into the next question by Muns319 states that prices are insane. The same truck I bought 12 years ago is almost double the price I paid for it back then in today's money. So we look at the pricing and we say, where is this pricing coming from? Let's go back 12 years ago to what this person says. 12 years ago, I guarantee you that whoever sold that vehicle to them made money, and probably damn good money on that sale. So are you telling me that in today's money that Dodge and Chrysler are not making money selling a Dodge truck? Well, sure they are. Are they making as much as they did 12 years ago? Maybe not. But with inflation, you expect to pay more. Right. The problem is that inflation in 12 years, I guarantee you, has not gone up 100%.
Right.
Right.
I would say that also the other side to that, which I think it's sort of a false economy, is everybody wants the Platinum, everybody wants the SLT Longhorn, everybody wants the GMC, what High Country, I don't know whatever the top GMC is, Denali. Thank you. And so that's what people want, but people really don't realize that it's just a bit of plastic, it's just a bit of leather. It's not actually worth the extra 20%. And if you could probably get away with just having a mid-range car, but the dealerships aren't bringing them in because they know they can sell the premium ones.
Well, and it's not just that. It's a little bit of, if you wanted to go in and buy your entry level step above a work truck, what does Dodge call them? Dodge calls them the outdoorsman.
Outdoorsman,
yeah, or something like that. So you want to go buy an outdoorsman or a tradesman. Tradesman is the entry level, or used to be. So you go and buy a tradesman, bare bones, with a V6 4-wheel drive and a club cab or or quad cab, they call it, you're going to pay almost 50 grand
or more
for a base truck today.
Yeah. I went shopping recently with a friend of mine. He wanted to buy a new 1500. I'm not going to go into the enormous amount of money that he spent on a new 1500 GM product. But the work truck, I looked at it, the WT 4-wheel drive base features, 6-foot box, 6.5-foot box, and a crew cab was $56,000 for the 2.7 4-cylinder. If you wanted the 5.3, it was an extra $4 grand.
Yeah.
So that bumped it up to almost well over 60 grand by the time you pay taxes. That's nuts for a work truck. I remember work trucks were like 25 grand, and I'm not that old.
King Eric says, how much is a new square body?
Well, actually, it's funny you should say that.
It is.
Because you can build them now. AMD, one of your channel sponsors, actually has all the metal parts to build a square body.
Yeah, so if you wanted to build if you had a frame and you wanted to build your own cab and truck and everything like that, it's expensive. But even to go out and buy a square body,
It's expensive.
It's ridiculous.
Also, if you're looking for a good square body and you want a deal,
yes,
there in the background, Dale is for sale.
It is. Speaking of for sale, guys, we've got new beer koozies on the website. If you guys are interested, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. There is a way to get these for free. All you got to do is buy a t-shirt, hat, or hoodie. And when the order comes through, I'm going to throw one of these in with the order. However, if all you want is a koozie, it's going to cost you $3 plus a stamp. So head on over to the website. Make sure, $4. You're going to have to head over to the website. The link is in the description box down below. And also, OCG-15 is still available on the website, 15% off your order. So you're getting a bonus there as well. I'm going to throw in a can koozie, maybe two.
For anybody who wants to know, we had originally green can koozies, but we had to get rid of them. Do you know why? Because somebody uses a green screen and the can koozie disappears.
Well, if I go over here, see, in the green screen, it doesn't disappear anymore.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to the topic at hand. King Eric says, is the Eco Diesel still around? I don't know if they still offer it.
They were talking about bringing it back, and I'm not sure if they did for this year. I think they might have. But that had a whole pile of problems. And we talked about this before the show. It's like they had a solution right there. All they had to do was reach out and touch Cummins and say, hey, how about a 4BT?
Yeah.
Right. It's like they were so close. But again, being Stellantis or being Fiat, I feel like they sourced that from Europe somewhere. And, much like they did previously in the 90s and early 2000s with that Jeep that ran that weird Italian marine diesel thing that was in the Jeeps. I mean, concept was good. Engine was just terrible. I think that kind of I think anybody who really wanted a diesel in a Jeep kind of got a bad taste in their mouth after that. And I don't think Jeep will ever really put a diesel back in anything. So
the SISOP, which is technical jargon for those nerd guys out there, system operator.
Yeah.
The SISOP says, I hope Stellantis sells them off and they are able to actually improve their quality and take a hard look at the business. I don't have faith that Stellantis can fix this. My initial thoughts on that comment was 100%. I do hope they find someone who can focus on one or two models that will be the breadwinners of the brand, kind of like Lee Iacocca did with the K car in 1980. So I hope that they can take the Ram truck and the Wrangler. Somebody can do that. We'll talk about who we think that should be, but can take those and make them A, affordable again, B, be able to make them in a stripped down version that is profitable, if that's possible, but also look at build quality. I scroll through these comments, a lot of comments on reliability, quality, stuff like that with these things. Once upon a time, Dodge made a decent product. People will say that they did not ever, but you could say that about every brand. There was a point in time where Ryan, you're a Volkswagen guy. There was a point in time where Volkswagens were just crap.
Sorry, you mean the last 75 years?
I wasn't going to say that. I was just trying to make a point. But there's a point in every brand's career or lifespan that they have a dry spell or a weak point or whatever. So if you're a Chevy guy or a Ford guy or whatever, there's been a point in time where that they suffered quality issues.
But even if you look at like the K car, everybody has mixed. I feel like the K car is a little bit of trauma for a lot of people too, because they weren't great vehicles. They rotted. They had a lot of issues themselves, but people still have sort of nostalgic feelings towards them.
Sure.
But the point was they were cheap, and they were cheap enough that you just dealt with the issues and accepted the faults.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
If I spend $100,000 on a truck, and the wheel falls off, I'm not going to be like, oh well, Dodge Brothers did it again.
And in this video we're about to watch, one of the things that they talked about was build quality and reliability of the Grand Wagoneer. You go out and spend $120,000 for one of these things. You don't want it to be in the shop every other month for a petty little issue, because the first person you're going to tell that you're having problems is your neighbor, who coincidentally is a potential Grand Wagoneer purchaser.
Especially if we were talking earlier, it's all about keeping up with the Joneses.
Yep.
The Joneses bought a Wagoneer and they're starting to shit talk it. You're probably going to go buy yourself an Escalade. Right. So,
running through those comments on Instagram, if you go over there at Olde Carr Guy, you go to my Facebook page, read the comments on that video as well. You're getting a lot of the same thing. People are saying that it's simply not the brand's fault. It's management. Yeah, to some degree, I would agree with that. But you look at all the other brands, or not all the other brands, but I mean, I'm gonna say it. Take a look at Toyota, who is at the top. Why are people not doing as good as Toyota is with quality? Has Toyota had their issues? Sure, they have. But they've got a different process on the assembly line that when they find an issue, they can stop the line, fix it, and not just fix it on the cars on the line, but fix it for all future cars coming through the line.
Yep.
And I don't think anybody else does that.
No, they just say, well, slap a recall on it. We'll deal with it later.
We just sent shit down the road? Well,
Yeah.
We'll let the dealers deal with it.
Yeah.
No big deal. Okay, before we go any further and get too far along on this live stream, I only wanted to be here for an hour. I want to play portions of this video for you guys so that we can pause it and talk a little bit about some of the things that we're saying. So for credit's sake, and hopefully so that I don't get copyright strikes on this, it is CNBC who initially put out this video just 2 days ago. The video currently has 616,000 views. And again, great information on the video, not just there, but in the comments as well. So I'm going to play this so you guys can have a little bit of an issue, and we'll come back and we will talk about it, and we'll be breaking it up a little bit in between. So we're going to add this here, and we're going to go over, and we're going to play.
You may or may not have heard the name Stellantis, but you certainly know at least some of its 14 brands, 4 of them American. Stellantis is the 5th largest automaker in the world. It had a banner year in 2023, but 6 months later, the company is struggling. After hitting a high in March 2024, shares have fallen by more than half, and shareholders are losing enthusiasm.
The whole discussion on Stellantis has been
Shares have dropped by half. Is that what they said?
Yep. Share value has dropped by half.
Share value has dropped by half since March. So in 6 months.
That's a sinking ship. That's a get out before you can't.
Like, what the heck is going on with that?
basically collapsed. We're not talking about free cash flows. We're not talking about long-term EV strategy. We're not talking about market position.
Not talking about EV strategy. I think that's part of the problem as well.
Or the China Leap Motor joint venture. We're only talking about how much will it cost the company to get rid of the U.S. inventory.
As a result of the disappointing U.S. sales, profits have fallen by nearly 50% and market share is down.
It is an understatement to say that H1 2024 results were disappointing and humbling.
the dealer body, and evidently the UAW as well, believes we're on a bad track that was all self-inflicted.
On September 30th, 2024, the company slashed its forecasts for full-year profitability and cash flow. The stock plunged nearly 13% by closing. There is mounting pressure on Stellantis' CEO and calls for him to step down. So, how did Stellantis get to this place, and can it recover?
So one thing that this video talks about too, that they'll bring up here in a minute, is you look at the cost and the prices of things going up, the fact that they're losing profits and all this stuff. We've also got the UAW on their backs as well, looking for increased wages, looking for whatever pensions and this and that. We're talking about the UAW where assembly line workers are getting paid $100,000 US a year. That contributes to the cost of not just Dodge vehicles, but GM and Ford, because they're all part of that as well.
Check out these charts. There's Stellantis' financial results for the first half of 2024. The stock's full-year performance as of early October. Shares have fallen from a high of $29.51 in March to just above $13. And it's mostly due to poor U.S. sales of its American brands. It isn't the only automaker going through tough times, but it is one that has lost significant market share to its rivals over the last 3 years. In September, several officers of Stellantis' National Dealer Council sent an open letter to the company, accusing management of being behind the troubles. Dave Kelleher is a Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and Chrysler dealer in Pennsylvania. 3 years ago, dealers like Kelleher were earning profits of about 4.5% of sales, which is strong for the industry. The benchmark is 4%. But now Kelleher says the average is less than 1%.
That's caustic. We have not
Going from 4.5% profit to less than 1%. That goes back to the comment we made about the cost or the profits they were making 12 years ago, and the fact that they were making money selling vehicles. And again, later on in the video, they talk about the average price of a vehicle on this guy's lots is $60,000, when all other brands are in the $43,000 or $45,000 dollar range. So their vehicles are more expensive. The quality's not there, and they're not, the dealers themselves just aren't making the money they need to.
And you also point to they're not going to make the money, even more so if they've got to liquidate the stock.
Right, because the only way to liquidate the stock is to get rid of them at cost, which isn't much less than what they're already selling them for.
Exactly.
And
I honestly see them selling them at under cost. At this point, they're liabilities, and every day they're on the lot, they're losing value.
For sure.
So take the bullet when you can.
Yeah.
They're actually losing money in a bunch that are really close to it.
In the same time period, the values of those dealerships have plummeted from 5 to 5.5 times earnings to 1 to 2 times, depending on the dealership's location. Kelleher is selling 100 cars a month, whereas he used to sell about 185. As of mid-September, he had 473 cars on his lot, collectively worth about $27 million.
Holy.
Bear in mind, dealers buy their cars directly from the automaker. Kelleher has been selling these cars his entire career and has seen the ups and downs. This time, he says the troubles are of Stellantis' own making.
Dealer morale is at low. Corporate morale is at an all-time low. So I would suggest that this company, I don't know what their end plan is, because they certainly don't tell us. But for 2.5 years, we've explained to them that we think we're on a bad path and nothing's been done to it.
The dealers aren't the only discontent stakeholders. The United Auto Workers Union has been threatening to strike again. And earlier in 2024, Stellantis suppliers were halting production over pricing disputes. The disputes have spilled into the courts.
North America operations were, highly profitable and kind of seen as a little bit of a cash cow. Maybe the idea was it could run itself with not much influence, but it still needed support.
And when they talk about still needing support, what they mean is support from the manufacturer level or the corporate levels. Gone are the days where Dodge as a brand, Jeep as a brand, or Ram as a brand are controlled by the CEOs or executives of those brands anymore. It comes from higher up, Stellantis, and then the brand, right? So if Stellantis says, we want you to make these vehicles at a lesser cost, then the brand has to figure out ways to do that. And if that means quality or quality of material or whatever happens to be, they've got to cut something. And at this point, they're cutting and cutting and cutting. The dealers aren't making any money, so they're not able to sell. And it's a trickle down effect, and it's causing much bigger problems.
Stellantis has only existed for about 3.5 years. It was created out of a merger of two major automakers, France's Group PSA, sometimes known as Peugeot, and Fiat Chrysler, which was itself a merger of two other companies, the Italian maker Fiat and the American Chrysler, a company with a long and tumultuous history.
Chrysler has always been the weakest of the three major producers.
It's funny how we talked about it earlier, Ryan, that Dodge or Chrysler or whatever you want to call it as a whole was always that third wheel or that back burner brand maybe within the big three. So when the opportunity comes for them to be bought by a bigger corporation or bigger conglomerate, there are other third wheel companies across the planet. And it just so happened to be Peugeot and Fiat that got together and said, "Hey, well, let's buy that third wheel over in North America too."
Yeah, it's like the greatest hits from those bands that were one-hit wonders, like the $2 CDs in the convenience store bin.
Yeah, let's put them all on one track.
one compact disc collection.
So I want to jump ahead in this video here. We start talking about EVs a little bit, I think.
Which where they were.
As the pandemic rolled on, automakers started raising prices too. Stellantis.
So here's a pretty good graph. GM, Ford, and Dodge, or Stellantis, all started raising their prices. And obviously Toyota's getting there, but look what it's done since 2019. Incrementally, Toyota went up. But aggressively, Stellantis took this great big jump in 2020 during the pandemic because they weren't making any money and they weren't selling any cars, and they just started raising prices. And in 2023, the reason why they were making so much money is because they were in the top tier dollar-wise.
Stellantis did it much more aggressively than others.
So a Jeep Wrangler, which used to be pretty, basic vehicle, very affordable vehicle, increased 30+% during the pandemic. That's more than their comparable vehicles did.
The company also started releasing some very pricey new models, including the Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer, two 3-row SUVs priced starting at around $60,000 and going all the way up to $120,000.
And this is American dollars, folks.
Right.
So add another 30+% on that.
But also add the new tax that we have to pay in Canada for luxury vehicles.
Yes.
So there's an extra 30% tax on top of that price.
Yeah.
That's a stratosphere that Jeep has never been in before. Now you're competing with Range Rover. You're competing with Escalade.
The price hikes, along with the internal cost cuts, provided Stellantis with a year of record sales, profits, and cash flow. But things were already beginning to slip.
Over the course of the pandemic, products weren't being refreshed. Products were kind of starting to languish, yet the positioning and pricing was going up. And consumers certainly voted with their pocketbooks and went elsewhere.
There were product quality issues, including on new and high-priced vehicles, such as the Wagoneer models.
If you want to charge a premium price for your product, the consumer is going to expect extra features, extra benefits. They want to enjoy that product. And if it's in the shop a lot because the fan is so loud in the Wagoneer, or that AC doesn't reach the third row, or other quality issues that Stellantis has had with its products, they're not going to recommend that vehicle to their friends.
At the same time, the company cleaned house, removing models it no longer considered sufficiently profitable or worth producing. For example, the Jeep Renegade, Jeep Cherokee, and the Chrysler 300, But the Cherokee was a mass-market mid-size SUV that used to compete with top sellers like the Toyota RAV4 and Honda CR-V. The Renegade was in the popular and relatively
So let's take a look at these numbers again.
mass-market mid-size SUV that used to compete with top sellers like the Toyota RAV4.
So when you're trying to compete with the upper echelon, the Toyotas and the Hondas that are out there, look at the number of vehicles sold by Toyota and Honda compared to this one lowly Jeep. 24,000 Jeeps in 2023 compared to almost 500,000 RAV4s and 360,000. When you build quality, they will come.
But also, it's like, I understand why they dropped it. You know, the big thing is that the Jeep Cherokee was priced the same as a RAV4, when maybe they would sell more if they were 15 grand or 10 grand cheaper than a RAV4. Right.
Well, in the used market, like you take a 5-year-old RAV4 and a 5-year-old Cherokee, the Cherokee is going to be $5,000 to $7,000 cheaper.
Yeah, if not, it's already in the scrapyard
or whatever. Yeah, I mean,
right.
there's a reason why Toyota and Honda are at that upper echelon. It's because they build
good vehicles.
I'm not going to say quality vehicles, but better quality vehicles in the long run.
And Honda CR-V. The Renegade was in the popular and relatively inexpensive subcompact SUV segment. The Chrysler 300 was one of the automaker's last sedans, key to bringing customers into the brand and hopefully keeping them for years or even a lifetime.
We had the best SUV lineup in America. We had a great Ram truck. We had commercial vehicles. We had sedans. I had a full menu. We don't have that anymore.
The Charger and Challenger were folded into one nameplate. The closely related Chrysler 300 is gone, and the company's big V8 engines are being swapped for smaller inline-six ones,
which really bothers our Ram customers. And the turbo engine is not a bad engine. And actually,
so my thoughts on switching to an inline-six are, I'm okay with it. If you want to have an inline-six with, twin turbo or compound turbo in this case, and put out 550 horsepower and torque and whatever, I'm okay with that. But don't make it the only option. Like, they should have left the Hemi as maybe a premium option, or this new Hurricane inline six cylinder as a premium option or something. They should have left that in there somehow. But they don't even give them. I guess the only options they have is you can go with the Pentastar V6 in a base model work truck, or you can go with this Hurricane. And I got nothing against the Hurricane.
I'll be honest. Longevity is beyond my concern. I'm a turbo guy. Almost all the vehicles I own have turbos. They are not terribly reliable. I don't see them surviving the length that a naturally aspirated 5.7 would. I think they're going to have terrible issues.
Hemis have the Hemi tick that chew cams up.
Sure.
Again, quality issue, but if you buy a pickup truck for work, the long end of it is you want V8 horsepower.
Yeah.
Right. Coming up here, they're going to be talking about
the Hornet
shelf life.
Yes.
Brands in the U.S., Stellantis brands are among those sitting on dealer lots the longest. 5 of the 8 brands with the most days supply are all Stellantis brands, including.
So you look at the U.S. average, which is this blue line. If you can't see it, that's landing right about the 70-day mark.
Yep.
And what days of supply mean are how long they sit on the lot before they sell. And like Toyota is up here at roughly 30 days. Volkswagen, Brian, they're sitting at just below the average at about 60 days.
Yep.
But you get down here and they've got highlighted Chrysler, Alfa Romeo, Jeep, Dodge, and Ram. And the shortest one is over 100 days of inventory.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I find it interesting too. You have Audi, Mercedes, Genesis, basically what we would call luxury car brands are also up there.
Yeah.
Right. And Lincoln, your favorite. is also.
But the whole idea is that, you know, you look, these are all basically
Still,
you know,
yeah.
all of the Jeep brands that are in there. There's nothing in there that's below. They're all shit numbers,
including every Chrysler brand. That means they aren't selling. Dealers like Kelleher say this is due to high prices overall. He estimates that the average price of the cars on his lot is about $60,000. The average price for all dealers is far lower.
The market is really worried that to move those cars that are sitting on dealer lots, Stellantis will need to give hard cold cash to dealers to get those cars out the door.
Dealers and so in the short term, Stellantis.
So this is where they start talking about EV. This is where I was trying to get to before we jumped earlier. This is where they talk about their direction and lack of to follow suit with the masses. Again, in my Instagram reel today, I questioned, is that part of the reason why? Let's let them talk, and you guys can make up your own opinion from there.
This needs to sell more cars and clear out dealer lots. Long term, critics say Stellantis doesn't have enough fresh product and the right kind of product.
And that's what Marchione understood, that, you know, you needed to build a dynamic lineup and you needed to have a plan that replaced these cars on a regular regimen. And I don't think we have that plan right now.
There are several vehicles on the way. The company plans to replace the Cherokee with a new SUV in 2025. It is one of several new products slated for release in the coming years.
Despite the fact that Chrysler Group brands are struggling in the US right now, there is a lot of innovation coming down the pipeline.
The Jeep Recon, an electric SUV that would compete with products from companies like Rivian. The revamped Charger is set to hit dealers by the end of 2024, including the electric version. Even Chrysler is set to have at least 3 new products starting in 2026, including an electric Pacifica minivan and 2 electric crossovers.
But is that too little too late, is my question.
Ram is slated to release a fully electric pickup and another truck called the Ram Charger. It's electric, but comes with an onboard generator that charges the battery. This helps with towing and long-distance travel.
Ryan, you and I have talked about this a lot.
We have.
With electric drivetrain and, you know, get, in this case, gasoline powered generator or diesel powered generator, how we feel like that is likely closer to the direction that most brands should be looking at in the form of, if you want to call that the new hybrid technology. Edison Motors out of British Columbia, this is exactly what they're doing with their semi trucks.
Yep.
It's running all electric drivetrain,
and their conversion kits, which they're going to be fantastic.
Yeah, so you can, you know, with a conversion kit, you can take an older model 3/4 ton or larger pickup and convert it to all electric drivetrain with 2 drive axles that are electric, run a battery pack and a small diesel engine under the hood that charges the batteries while you're driving.
It's the best of both worlds.
Range is important and all that. And that's one of the things that has been keeping a lot of potential electric truck customers from, you know, pulling the trigger.
There are competitive products already in the lineup. Jeep's 4xe hybrid technology can go 20 or 30 miles on electric power. Stellantis' plug-in hybrids, including the Wrangler 4xe, are top sellers.
Mostly these are being used to go get groceries or pick up the kids from school or go to work. But nevertheless, that's a technology that is been selling very well.
Jeep is on a tear, a lot of new product, and can generate a lot of interest and excitement.
So you get the gist of what CNBC was trying to say in that video. And my point is, you know, when I asked the question, is Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, are they on the chopping block? The short answer is no, I don't believe they are. But they've got some big hurdles to overcome in the coming months if they're going to survive. Do I think that the U.S. will let them become in the situation of bankruptcy? I mean, they've bailed them out before. They've set precedent. They'll probably do it again because of the job.
Yeah, but
and it certainly depends on the balance of power after the November elections in the U.S. too. So, long and short of it is, I think that the brands themselves will survive. Just I don't believe they'll survive under the current structure. And maybe Ryan, you can kind of elaborate on that as well.
Yeah, I don't see. I would think back to, and I believe we talked about this before. I'm not 100% sure if it actually happened, but I do remember it was talked about when Saturn went bankrupt in 2009, or they were shuttered. There was a group of dealers that got together and looked at. I don't know if they actually purchased the full company or if they just purchased the parts inventory, but I know there was talks about them actually purchasing the entire company and still making Saturns under their own brand. Do I see dealers in the United States being able to do something similar? I mean, if you had enough of them, I suppose you could get a venture capitalist involved and try to take, ownership of the company. But there's such a big behemoth that without some serious restructuring, I don't see how they're going to be able to survive much in the current climate. Besides, drastically cutting prices and trying to win people over by being cheap, which I don't see them doing because obviously they've got lots of money in inventory that they need to sell. So,
well, we talked about it of what you and I felt was the cash cows of Ram, and that was the Ram pickup and the Wrangler.
Yeah,
both of which they seem to have priced themselves just simply out of the market. A base Jeep with a manual transmission, maybe even with a 4-cylinder. I'm not opposed to that.
No,
but a base Jeep 4-wheel drive with a manual transmission and a 4-cylinder, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to buy one of those even in American dollars for $25,000.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is like the technology they're using is 100 years old at this point, right? Like they're
well,
they've recouped their money on the actual design. Sure, they've changed a few things, but it's essentially the same Jeep from.
Well, exactly.
Right?
If somebody was coming from the past, Marty McFly comes back from 1955 and drops into the middle of nowhere and sees a Jeep going by, he's going to know exactly what that thing is.
Oh, it's a Jeep. Right?
It's a Jeep.
Yeah.
The problem is there's got to be a little bit of styling. There's got to be a little bit of options. I mean, all these guys who want to go out and rock crawl these things, in order to get the locking differentials and the disconnect sway bar links and blah, 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 they've got to spend 50, 60 grand on a 4-door Jeep to get that. And they don't all want that necessarily.
And then they all end up beating the shit out of it. So
yeah. And then you bring on the Gladiator, which is the most anticipated change that Jeep has done in the last 100 years.
It was terrible.
It looks terrible, but the first thing it did was the base model started off at 50 grand.
Yeah. I think they could have fixed it by not making it 4-door.
Well, at the very least, they could have made it an extended cab.
Yeah.
And maybe not with seats in it, but with storage.
Yeah.
But just made it more proportional looking. But again, they cheaped out on the design of the Gladiator, in my opinion. But there's a lot of things I think that Jeep could do. There's a lot of things that Ram could do to help bring back.
And I just want to point out Chuck's comment there. The Dodge Ram 1200 is sold outside the U.S. That's the truck we were talking about. Yeah. It's about the size of a Ford Ranger. I think there's a terribly underserved area of the market in what we would traditionally call a mini truck.
Yep.
And I think Maverick has proven that. I mean, they cannot keep them on the lots. People are buying them hand over fist.
And like my local Ford dealer does not have a Ford Maverick on the lot.
Mine doesn't either. It's like
it's not because they can't sell them. It's because they are selling them.
And they're sold before they even arrive. They're all pre-sold.
They're all pre-sold. Right. And even to the point now where you're able to get more options and more levels of trim than just the basic 2 that they started with a couple of years ago.
And the big one that's coming out this year for 2026, I guess, because 2025 is already out, or 2025 is just about, is the all-wheel drive, but also the hybrid.
Yeah.
And that's getting some terrifyingly good mileage numbers for anybody who's concerned about gas consumption. Right,
Because
and it goes like stink. It's a quick little truck.
Yeah, because years ago when you had the S10s, the Sonomas, the original Ranger, and even the Dakotas. Dakotas were still made as a mid-sized truck,
Right.
but still fit that category of a mini truck. They're not mini anymore. You go park my Chevy Square Body beside a new Canyon or Colorado, and
They're 3/4 trucks. Like they're not half the size. They're 3/4 the size, right? Like they're still
they're
pretty
big.
massive.
They're big trucks. So I think there is a market for that. Dodge needs to bring that 1200 to North America. GM needs to bring something back in the S10 size range.
Chevy Love. We got to bring back the Chevy Love.
Well, call it what you want. I mean, they'll call it a Love just like they called the Blazer a Blazer.
Yeah.
It'll be nothing like what it was. But at the end of the day, I think the whole idea is there's a market. It's proven. Ford has proven it, and Ford is capitalizing on it because they're the only ones out there doing it. Well, the Santa Cruz is out there as well.
But at like 20 grand more.
Sure.
Which is arguably a less vehicle.
Well, and it's not that good looking nor reliable.
No.
However, the whole point that I wanted to make with this live stream was just kind of bring the attention to folks, all 12 of you or 16 of you who are watching, but just to create some buzz, to create some conversation that, we quite possibly could see the end of these brands. Is it possible? Yes, but is it likely? I don't think so. I think there's some hope for them there somewhere. I don't think it's the end of the world for Dodge, Jeep, or Ram yet.
Well, one of the things I was going to say too is we kind of glossed over it, but we talked about the K car saving Dodge. But I'll tell you, one of the things that really saved it in the late 80s going into the 90s was the Caravan. And I don't understand why they got rid of it. Why are there no Dodge Caravans anymore?
Yeah.
Like that seemed to be like,
you
again,
mean
one
from
of these
size standpoint?
Yeah, like what? Like why doesn't it exist? You can get the Pacifica now, but can you still get a Dodge? I don't think you can get a Dodge Ram or Dodge Caravan anymore, can you?
Well, they're all Grand Caravans if you're looking
right.
So they're
right. So they're
when they came out with the Pacifica was kind of supposed to be a replacement for the Grand Caravan, but again they did the same thing. A base Pacifica was $50 grand.
Right.
But
if
now
I'm spending $50,000 on a minivan, it's going to be a Toyota Sierra or Sienna.
Right?
Let's be honest.
Now you can get, you can still get a Grand Caravan. They brought the name back after 2018 because 2018 they killed that old boxy style Grand Caravan.
Yeah,
and they went without it for a couple of years. Then all you had the choice of was a Pacifica.
Right.
But now you can buy a Grand Caravan that's just basically a stripped down Pacifica.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Darth Bobo says crossovers killed minivans. Yeah, I would agree to some extent, but there is still a market, I think, for a multi-passenger van that isn't a giant, Sprinter or whatever the Fiat Ram thing is.
Well, and he also makes the comment that no one wants caravans. Well, Darth Bobo, you may not want a caravan, but I'll tell you, as a used car dealer, I cannot keep used Grand Caravans on the lot. Everyone I bring in, no matter the price, whether it's a high-end, luxury leather, or it's just a base model with no tint windows, I can sell them. Guys who are contractors, older people, older folks, it's easy in and out. They're not horrible on fuel. That Pentastar V6 is mostly reliable. They've got their issues, but what doesn't? And they got decent power. The transmissions have their issues, sure, but
you're gonna put brakes on them fairly often. But what doesn't require brakes all the time now?
I mean, the whole point is that minivans aren't for everybody. But if you really break it down, the practicality of a minivan is there. Whether it's a Caravan or a Chevy Venture or a Toyota Sienna, the minivan practicality is there, and just because you don't want that stigma attached to you, well, that's on you.
I totally get it. Like I owned a minivan for a while. We used it as a work vehicle. It was the best work vehicle we've ever had because we could lay a sheet of plywood in the back and it fit, and it was dry, and you could lock things away. Sometimes trucks don't have those options.
and Dodge being the only one that had the full stow and go with both rows going into the floor.
Yeah, we just hauled our seats out because it was a work van. But yes,
But still, genius. Fold them in the
Yeah.
floor. You never had to deal with it ever again if you were a work truck type of guy.
yeah. And at one point they made them slightly narrower so you couldn't fit a sheet of plywood in, and then the next they made them a little bit wider again so you could put a sheet of plywood. I remember there was some anger about that for a few years.
Yeah, but no matter how you look at it, I think that there is hope for the brands. They may not be under the Stellantis umbrella. Maybe they will be. Maybe they'll get their head out of their ass. I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't think you'll see them going anywhere. So having said that, we shared our thoughts. We had a great conversation. I encourage you guys, if you're not following me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or even right here on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There is a link down in the description box below for my website or my store if you want to pick up some Olde Carr Guy merch, not like this Vice Grip Garage t-shirt.
Okay, John Ross.
Yeah, you could pick that up, and like I said, OCG15 is the discount code, 15% off your order, and whatever you do order, we're throwing in a beer koozie with your order. So thank you for doing that. Also, check out Everything is Broken Garage. Ryan, are you even posting anything over there these days?
It's a lot of retro tech streams, some car stuff. But if you're into old computers and cars, then I'm the only station that seems to merge the two. So
yeah, check out the Amiga 5000 over his shoulder there.
Yeah,
or maybe that's two of them.
It's two Amiga 500s.
Oh, okay.
One wasn't enough.
Yeah. Anyways, Brian, thanks for joining the live stream, and thank all you guys for being a part in your comments. And the only reason why I don't want to say the only reason, the biggest reason why I wanted to go live tonight was because I didn't put out a regular video this week. So we will have something coming to you, and trust me, it will be worth it, because there is a revival video coming out on a 77 Lincoln Continental.
Yep.
Sorry, 78.
And also, Jason bought his first EV. I know.
No, he did not.
He bought a new Milwaukee Impact.
Yes, exactly. All right, guys, I appreciate the time. We're getting up here on 10 o'clock local time. It's 10:30 in Newfoundland. So I appreciate you guys sticking around, and we will see you guys later.
Have a good one, everyone.